Everybody, it's 9:30 on the East Coast, 6:30 on the West Coast on a Monday. That must mean it's time for your weekly Calamity Jane live stream. James, how are you doing on this blisteringly hot Monday evening?
I'm doing all right. Thankfully, it's not as blisteringly hot on my side of the country, but yeah, I know it's definitely hot all over. So,
Whew, man,
and you
yeah.
were recapping your weekend and how
Oh,
you didn't hydrate enough, and now
yes.
you
Got
learned
a
your
little.
lesson, and now
Got yeah. Heat and booze will give you heat stroke faster than anything else in the world.
yeah, I would think so. I mean, that's yeah, but I'm glad everything's great, and here we are doing our stream,
Yeah,
and
everything is
we can
fine
hang out,
now.
and
Yeah.
you've recovered, so it's all that matters. So that's good.
Yeah, who knew? Who
Um,
knew that in my old age I'd become a party animal? Where was this guy when I was in my 20s, right?
that's true. When I knew you in your 20s, this is not you.
No, this is yeah.
You're much more, you're much more. I mean, you would enjoy a party. I mean, I remember we went to one or two parties together.
Sure.
In there, there's some, yeah, but yeah, like me, I'm the same. Like I've stayed the same since my 20s. I don't really party too much, but
Yeah.
you love change apparently, so that's good, I guess.
I've just been living. I've been
Each
like
their own.
not like physically, but I have like emotional Benjamin Button syndrome, where
Yeah.
the older I get, the younger I get mentally or something. I don't know. I have no idea what it is.
That's good. That's
Life
good.
life took a
I
different
think
direction
that's
for me.
as long as it doesn't impact as long as you don't get too much heat exhaustion going forward, I think we're in good shape.
It was
And there'll be
yeah.
plenty of streams to come.
Whew, man, I on so we went out to this. Me and a bunch of friends went out to this thing in Atlanta called the Museum of Illusions, which is just a small little place
Hmm.
where they have a lot of optical illusions that you can play with and take photos of. It was fun. It wasn't really worth the amount of money that
Hmm.
we spent to go to it, but it was fun nonetheless. I'd say it was
Yeah,
probably worth.
sometimes it's worth. Yeah. No good.
Oh no, I was gonna say it was probably worth about $15, not worth $30, but that's all right.
Yeah, but see, sometimes it's worth spending the money for an experience just to say you have a little story in your back pocket. So I think sounds like it's worth it.
Yeah, it was a good time.
30, even though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so after that, and it was like,
Um,
it was the, I mean, it's been, high 90s, almost 100 degrees, and with Georgia humidity, it feels like it's, the surface of the
mm,
sun.
yeah.
Um, and, uh, um, so, yeah, just walking from the parking lot to the museum, it made me sick to my stomach because it's so hot. Like, it makes, the amount of humidity and heat that we've got right now makes me nauseous to be in it for more than like 30 seconds.
Oh man, that's
It's
tough.
it is super rough. Even Penny, who usually loves being outside, Penny is my dog who has made an occasional appearance on the stream.
Hmm.
Um, she loves being outside, but right now she'll like go. There's like a patch of dirt that's
Yeah.
3 steps from my apartment. She does her business there and immediately wants to go back inside. It's
Yeah.
intolerable. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but
Well,
yeah. Anyway,
um,
so what are we looking at today?
yeah, let's roll into something. We'll continue this. Let's see here. Today, I will work on this scene. I'm calling it Scene 8, according to our label.
Okay.
But it's just a scene of where Uncle Leon and Calamity Jane are staring at that warhog that has just entered from the portal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, I've already made some assets earlier. So, yeah, I'll probably work on this shot actually right here. But let's see. Let me go back a little bit. So, yeah, I mean, I have him in the cloak and stuff. I'll probably grab these assets and try to at least do some color palette sampling of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, that's going to be the plan for tonight as we talk about
Sounds good.
stuff.
So I
Yeah.
still haven't seen
So,
either Barbie or Oppenheimer.
wow,
And in a
so
weird,
surprised.
I've been so busy. I have not had a chance to get to a movie theater. But tomorrow I'm free. I actually somehow don't have anything scheduled for tomorrow, so I'm gonna go and pick one of the two. And I know that you actually have seen both in a rare
Yeah,
turn
which
of
is not.
events.
Yeah. Talking to, like, yeah. I mean, it's a little odd that I'm the one that's seen movies, and I'm the one that's in the pop culture zeitgeist of movie going. At least for last weekend. I don't know about this weekend, but
Well,
I don't know what even came out this weekend.
Sympathy for the Devil is supposed to be out soon, which is Nick Cage's new movie.
Okay.
And I that looks hilarious. It's got Joel Kinnaman in it, who I like. And obviously, it's apparently like Nick Cage at maximum Cage. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I'll wait for you to see it, and you can tell me if it's worth seeing.
Yeah, it's theoretically
I just
out.
don't know.
So. Anyway,
so that's something you are gonna see that eventually. Then
I will
that's
probably see
that's
it.
Your goal?
Yeah, and I'm wondering if I should go see that if it's available. Let's see if it's out, because I don't think that's going to stay in theaters as long as Barbie or Oppenheimer will be. But no, it's still not at my local theaters. It says that it's out, but it's not in my local theaters. So.
Oh no. So is it like one of those limited release type movies? Maybe is that why?
Maybe it could just be like movie theaters down here have weird things. Like they all have different. Even though there's only like so many movies that are out, they all have slightly different lists of what they're showing. Like some places are still showing Beyond or Across the Spider-Verse, and some aren't, and some are still showing Insidious, and the others aren't. And then some show these, like, you know, they have these like small time anime things, but it doesn't look like any of the theaters around me right now are showing that. So it might just end up seeing it only on streaming. But so anyway, got really off track there. My question was, since you've seen both Barbie and Oppenheimer, and I'm going to go see one of them tomorrow apparently because Sympathy the Devil isn't playing anywhere, which one would you recommend that I go see?
Well, so okay, let's establish our biases and our annoyances with directors and stuff like that. I know you're neutral and or slightly annoyed with Nolan. Correct. Still,
correct.
At this
yes.
point?
At this point,
yeah,
he's got like two and a half movies. No, 3 movies that I like of his. 3 movies that I like of his.
Yeah. So, and then meanwhile, on the other side, you like Noah Baumbach as a writer. And
I love him as a writer, and I think she's a good writer and a great director. Yeah.
Well, I think it's a given. I think you got to go see Barbie.
Okay. All right.
Adam too.
It's kind of what I was thinking.
It's simple as that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really that simple. And also, it's not as much of a time commitment for you. There's that. I think that's actually pretty key. Again, you know, I know we agree on a lot of stuff, but sometimes we don't, and then that's where we have our fun little debates and stuff like that. But I think in this case, knowing you, I don't think you'd like. I think you'd like Oppenheimer. You actually might like it more than I did. I found myself checking my watch about like a half hour in. It was just already done.
And that's a 3-hour-long movie.
Yeah. So I was checking my watch a lot, and again, Amita, my wife, she fell asleep. You know, she got a good power nap in. Didn't miss anything. You know, I mean, that's this whole thing. You know, I mean.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, you're just kind of just waiting for it to happen, and it's just over. But it's I find it interesting because online, I don't know what the reception has been after, you know, the first weekend. Like, are people split, or do people like that, or are there Nolan cult people that are just amping up the numbers to make it look good? I got the impression that people tend to like it, so I might be in the minority on this. So.
Yes, my experience has been that people are still liking it. It's got a 94 on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, I don't understand why.
That's
but again, this is one of those things where I just don't understand why it would get a 94. It was boring.
Yeah. I will see. I did see. What's that? Go ahead.
I mean, the acting, you know, the actors are great. The cast is great. All that stuff is fine. It's just pacing is awkward. It does, you know, minor spoiler, but it does time travel a little bit in his life.
Yeah,
so
no, I'm familiar with it. Like, again, because of my job, it's all ultimately spoiled.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm not going in like it does. I knew that it had this sort of Christopher Nolan can't just make a movie. Right, he always has to do some sort of time gimmick in every one of his movies, and that's not always true. But I mean, it feels like it's always true.
But he definitely likes it. Let's put it that way, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he definitely loves to Yeah, I mean, and that it's prevalent in this one. Um, and I just found it after a while. I was just getting tired of that gimmick.
Yeah.
Why don't you just tell me a linear story? I know movies are 99.9% of them are all linear this way, but there's a reason why. I think just let me watch it in order of what happens, unless there's something compelling to make me want to see a flashback for some reason, and then go back to the present and or future. I just don't know. And then also it's a period, it's a historical biopic too. So it's not really, I don't know. I mean, you just go on Wikipedia and read about any history book, and you already know what's going to happen. It's just, so why do that gimmick at all? Like, we've already read it in a linear fashion already. We know about, for the most part, if you pay attention to history class, where you happen to learn about, him, which I would imagine a lot of people have. So there's nothing new that I think he brings to the table, except for maybe the love, his love life a little bit.
Yeah. I heard that sex scene between him and Florence Pugh is like 15 minutes long.
Oh, I didn't notice it being that long. Um, I know that there is some. I mean, I know India is up in arms about a particular scene, that particular scene, because he reads Sanskrit
Right.
during a lovey-dovey intercourse type of scene, and so now a lot of, we don't have to get down the whole rabbit hole of people are looking to get angry, but a lot of people are angry about this scene and how dare they, blah blah blah. They're shaking their fists, and so now there's trying to be. I don't know if it's boycotted in India or not.
It is. It's
But
actually banned in India.
okay, all right. Well, um, the scene itself, I don't remember it being that long. I thought it was fine for what they needed to do. I didn't have any, I don't know. People read books in bed, this is just me as a Indian uh, origin person. I mean, so they happen to be reading the Sanskrit in bed, and I don't know. I mean, I don't have the same issue, but I guess some people who, if they're very religious and stuff like that, I guess they can be mad about it. And
Yeah.
I guess they could ban it. So what else can be said in that regard? I guess
Yeah.
you have to respect belief systems, and the belief system feels like it's been offended. That's one thing, but I'm not of that belief system, so it might be better to get a sampling of people that are very religious in that regard. So
I mean, it's their prerogative to ban it
um,
in their country, right? I mean, it's their
yeah,
country. Ban it if you want to. I don't think
sure,
me. One of my least favorite words in English, or whatever the equivalent is in any language. One of my least favorite words is ban. As a general
yeah, yeah.
rule, I don't think anything good has ever been accomplished by banning things.
Yeah, I'm with you on that too, and that's kind of, I think that you put it much more succinctly than I did, because for example, in India, it's not. I mean, it's primarily a Hindu country, but I happen to have been raised Baptist, of all,
Mm-hmm.
and there's also
Mm-hmm.
Muslims in that country too. There's all kinds of religions in that country.
Mm-hmm.
So now, the prevailing religion has banned the movie, but what about is it, like, does everybody else just not get a say? Is that how it works? I mean, I don't know. I'm just asking more as a philosophical question, not really a critique, but more like everybody, if it's made, people should be able to access it and then
Yeah.
critique it,
Yeah, I mean,
for
there's always
themselves.
I mean, it's always the risk in any sort of society of both the tyranny of the majority and the tyranny of the minority, right? It's,
I know.
you don't want a majority of the people making it impossible for the minority of the people to live, but you also don't want a minority of the population to be able to control
Yep.
everything,
I
right?
know.
So
Yeah. So
I
what
mean,
do you know?
yeah,
It's such a
there's never a right answer. It's always a sliding scale. It's
no.
always a
Mm-mm.
balance, it's always like, it's like a ball on a plate that tilts, right? And the ball is always moving. The ball can never stop moving, you know?
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about? Where, like, they've got those plates and you have to balance the ball on the plate, and so you keep moving.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, that's basically what society
But
is. It's a ball on a tilting plate, right?
yeah.
It never stops. It's always a constant adjustment, you know? So,
Yeah. But with all that, with all that being said, I just didn't care for the movie
yeah.
in general,
Yeah.
and I think your time is better spent watching Barbie
Okay.
anyway. So, but I mean, Yeah, I don't. I just wonder where this movie will sit in his collection of movies. I just don't see it. I don't know if it's I don't know what people regard Dunkirk as. For example,
Hmm.
um, is it better than Dunkirk? I would say it's about the same. Like I don't know.
Okay,
I
well,
don't really know how to.
I liked Dunkirk, so that's one
Okay,
of
so
the
you might like
that's
this
one of the
movie.
three
Okay,
of his movies that I liked. Actually, was Dunkirk.
okay,
Um,
all right.
and
I
it was
was
one of the rare
bored with
instances.
Dunkirk too.
Yeah, it was one of the rare instances where the time dilation gimmick kind of worked for me, right? Because
Hmm.
it was three
Hmm.
stories: one of the ground invasion, one of the civilian brigade coming to rescue the
Sure,
British
sure, sure,
troops,
sure.
and then
Yeah.
one of the one is the fighter pilots defending the boats, right, and defending the soldiers on the ground. But he told the story. The fighter pilot story was like a 15-minute encounter.
Hmm.
The boat lift was like a day, and the ground invasion was over the course of a week, right? But
Okay.
the reason why it worked for me is he compressed the week long incursion into a day because I mean I get it, right? When you're under that so much stress, everything kind of like feels like it's compressed, right? But
Hmm.
then
Hmm.
with the plane, because it was so much intensity and so many things are happening so quickly, like looking back on it, I know that when I've gone through, like when I've gotten into a car accident or things like that, right?
Hmm.
Time
Hmm.
feels like it
Hmm.
slows down, right? And so
Yeah.
it was really I thought it was really interesting that this idea that depending on the nature of the conflict, depending on the nature of the stress, time is relative in that sense. And so he was able to cheat and take three stories of varying lengths and give them the same length in terms of the storytelling. It was one of those rare instances where his time gimmick stuff actually worked for me, right?
So okay. So refresh my memory because
Yeah.
you clearly pay attention to the movie more than I did. Were all those instances all happening at the same time in
Yes.
parallel with each other, or were they all linear?
No,
So
they were.
see, so he
Yeah.
wasn't really jumping in time. He was just going. He was just jumping from one parallel path to another parallel path to another
Well,
parallel path, right?
they were the okay.
Or
So, yeah.
yeah, no, that's all I'm asking
Oh,
is
okay.
like,
Well, so okay, so the ground invasion thing was like a week long event, right? So that was
yeah,
technically happening, all the way a week before the boat lift, right? The boat lift occurred on the last day of this story, and then the
okay,
fighter
all right,
pilot story occurred in the last 15 minutes of it, right? So taken chronologically,
okay,
the
okay,
longest story was the ground invasion story, right? But the way
okay,
he edited it to make it seem like they were all happening simultaneously. And it's
okay,
not until you get to the end of the movie where you realize that, oh my God, this one story's been going on for a week, this other story's been over the course of a day, and this one third story is like a 30-minute, 15-minute encounter, right?
okay,
And
all right,
so that's kind of where the gimmick came in. And I actually, like I said, in a rare instance where his time gimmicks thing worked for me, this was one of those instances.
okay.
So yeah.
Um, with Oppenheimer, I think it's a little bit more. It just feels more arbitrary when he decides to go back and forth in time. I think a little bit.
Hmm.
Uh, but
Yeah, I've heard him in interviews say that the black and white portions are objective time, and the color
yeah,
portions are subjective time.
yeah.
And I guess take that for what it's worth. Your
Hmm.
mileage may vary on that kind of thing, but
Yeah,
anyway, yeah. I mean, if you got similar vibes to Dunkirk, then I don't know. Maybe I will like it, but I
you
also don't
might,
want to
you
commit to
might.
like a 3 hour movie tomorrow night. So, if anything,
But
I'll
you know what?
just
Even with the potential of you liking Dunkirk, you still didn't. You still are semi-neutral with Nolan versus you like Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach. So
yes,
Barbie still
that's
should
fair.
win,
It
in
seems
my
like
opinion.
it's
If I'm
right.
just
Yeah.
yeah, I mean the writing's better. It actually yeah. I'm not gonna say anything else about Barbie. I mean I'm sure you read some things on it. And you know a little bit about it, but
Oh no, no, I know the whole
it's
story. I mean, I know all of it.
okay. All right.
I know all the controversy too, and at least from the outside looking in, my take
Hmm.
is that the extremes on both sides of the argument are out of their mind. They are
Oh, I didn't
over
know there was
analyzing. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
oh I didn't know there was stuff going on with it where people are having issues with it. Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, the
Huh.
it's really weird. Um, so it's all over the place. You've got some men's rights groups saying that it's an absolute affront to masculinity. You've
Okay.
got other extreme men's rights groups saying that it actually is a subversive condemnation of feminism, which is just so
Hmm.
bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
You've got like some extreme leftist groups coming at it from the exact opposite perspective, right? Like this is the final nail in the coffin of the patriarchy or whatever. And
Okay.
admittedly, I'll go see the movie and I'll make my own judgment. But based on what I
Mm-hmm.
know of the movie from work, it seems like they're all wrong. It seems like it is Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach doing what they do best, which is making an interesting film that encourages this kind of conversation, but
Mm-hmm.
they are not going as extreme as the extremes are because that's their talent, right? They hint at these things, they bring up these topics, but they sort of go and now make your own judgment. We've presented this thing, here's what we think about this, but we're not digging our heels in. We're not trying to make some sort of definitive statement. We're trying to give you a fun story that is open to
Mm-hmm.
interpretation and give you the opportunity to interpret it. And so in that regard, the extremes are doing exactly what they want. But I also think that to a certain extent, Noah Baumbach and Greta Gerwig are kind of chuckling to themselves that all of these extremists are taking it as far as they
Mm-hmm.
are, right? Because it's sort of like their gag. They did it, right? Like their gag worked. That's at least
Yeah.
my that's at least my suspicion from what I know of the movie. And so I'll watch it and make my own value judgment. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I get the sense that everybody who is really really up in arms about it is blowing it way out of proportion, regardless of what your
Yeah.
political leanings are.
Yeah. And again, I think I don't know. It's I understand people are passionate, but also again, I think there's just I feel like there's a need for people to be angry a lot about stuff and shake their fists at stuff a lot. And so this popcorn movie is the latest one that I guess I haven't been paying attention, but I guess is drew the ire of people that want to be mad about something.
Yeah, it's a challenge. I mean, Barbie has
Yeah,
been controversial for as
uh-huh,
long
for a
as
long time.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it's always it's. I mean, like in as early as I'd say the late '60s, maybe even a little bit earlier than that, it became an anachronism that somehow has persisted beyond any other sort of um, cultural um, touchstone. Like there are so many other things that we look back on and go, "Oh, isn't that quaint? Aren't we glad that we don't do that anymore?"
Hmm.
But
hmm
somehow
Yeah.
Barbie manages to persist. You know, and that's
Yeah.
not a judgment one way or the other. I don't, I don't play with the toys. I don't have daughters. I don't have sons, right? So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
kind of out
Hmm.
of my wheelhouse, and I got plenty of other things to worry about. So weighing in on the debate on whether Barbie is appropriate for our society or not is not it's not my position to do so. Um,
Uh-huh.
so it doesn't surprise me that Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach made a movie that has been as controversial as it has been, right? And in fact, I mean, I think that this again, and again, I need to watch it. I'm kind of speaking out of turn because I haven't seen it, but yeah,
Yeah.
we've already established that I do have a bias that I like both of these filmmakers a great deal.
Hmm. hmm
Um, um, but if my instincts are right, then that's kind of the biggest victory that they have is playing into the nature of the controversy around Barbie, right? And then being
Yeah.
able to
hmm
make a fun, entertaining movie that does have that subtle subtext. In that way, Barbie is the movie is an excellent representation of Barbie the toy, right? And
hmm
I don't know,
hmm
maybe I'm way off base. Maybe I'll go watch the movie and go, "This is the biggest piece of shit I've ever seen." I don't know, but
Yeah,
my
yeah,
suspicion
sure.
right now is that I will be chuckling along with them about basically what it ultimately is a bunch of in jokes about the nature of controversy culture, right?
Yeah, I'm surprised the movie it's pretty amazing to me that the movie even got made. I mean, because it's just it feels like it's a landmine. It's just filled with landmines to make people mad. But as I watched the movie, I felt like there was a lot of fun. There was a lot of things that they throw at you that could be considered controversial or whatever. And they do cover some of that history. And then there's no way you can, cover everything that's been
Right.
covered with controversial with Barbie in an hour and a half. But they did a really good job with what they did do with it.
Right.
But as just a movie watcher, I just kind of I left feeling like it was a little half baked because I
Okay.
wanted to see more of them expand on ideas and stuff like that, and they just probably ran out of time or ran out of budget, or they just didn't know.
Or they
I
pushed
just
it as
think it's a
far as
really
Mattel was going
difficult.
to let them push it, right?
Yeah, or it could be that. It could be executives. Who knows? But in that regard, it felt like there were some areas where just, oh, I wish they would have pushed that even further or expanded on that a little bit further. That would have been
Mm-hmm.
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't. They kind of just touched the hot stove for a second, and then they kind of just pulled themselves away. And then, like you kind of were saying, like let the viewers react at that point, and now they got their controversy. Um, I didn't even know there was controversy. I just thought it was just a fun Barbie movie, based on the toy. And I thought it was pretty funny how they interpreted stuff for it, and gave it a vehicle to talk about Barbie. But yeah, yeah. I'm wondering how both those movies do going forward. Like if they're considered a success or not. I wonder how much Barbie's made versus Oppenheimer, considering it runs 3 hours in length, and I don't know. They're all just things I'm just wondering about a little bit, but.
I mean, I do know that Barbie's box office receipts have been higher than Oppenheimer's. Um,
And because it's shorter too, and it can run
right,
more, right?
right. I'm sure that that has a lot to do with it because they're both relatively comparably rated, both from a critic standpoint and a user
Mm-hmm.
standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think Oppenheimer has gotten slightly higher reviews, but that's because the movie industry has this incomprehensible love affair with Christopher Nolan, who I think is a
Yeah,
remarkably average filmmaker under most circumstances. Um, just
yeah,
because you
yeah.
use a really large format film doesn't make you a brilliant director, right? I don't, it's just like, anyway. We spent we've burned
Yeah,
so much ink. We spilled so much ink talking about my opinions on Christopher Nolan. I'm not going to belabor the point
yeah,
there,
yeah, yeah.
but I do think that both of those films um, are very the filmmakers are very happy that they came out when they did. I can't imagine that they intended to do this. They were safe bets to release on the same weekend because it's not really the same audience. But there was
Mm-hmm.
something in the air. There was something about this mix of this very hard biopic about
Yeah,
the
I
creator of
know.
the
It's
atomic
weird.
bomb and then a Mattel toy that's existed
Yeah,
since just about as long as the atomic bomb. Um,
yeah.
and there was just something about that just it lit the cultural fires, and I think
Uh-huh.
that this cultural moment will be remembered more than either of those movies are, right? Because if
Yeah.
if you're right and Oppenheimer um, is on the level of Dunkirk, well, Dunkirk is, I mean, like by Christopher Nolan fan standards, Dunkirk is one of his more middling movies, right?
Uh-huh.
It doesn't
Uh-huh.
reach the apex of things like, apparently Interstellar has become a big cult hit after the fact, and obviously The
Why?
Dark Knight and Memento,
Yeah, yeah.
and
Sure.
you know those are his big ones. The Prestige, which again when it came out in
Mm-hmm.
theaters nobody watched, but apparently everybody loves The Prestige now. Um,
I enjoyed The Prestige. I forgot about that one as a Nolan film. I actually enjoyed
I
that one.
didn't
I
hate
liked
it.
it.
It
Yeah,
was fine. I thought it was
yeah.
hilarious that they got David Bowie to play Nikola Tesla. That was a weird casting choice. But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah.
other than that, though, it was fine. I just, a part of me, I think magic is so silly and so dumb. I mean, I think it's impressive that they can do what they can do, the sleight of hand, and you know, I think it's technically impressive. But I also think choreographed dance is impressive on a fundamentally technical level, right? The amount of effort and practice and commitment it takes to do something like that, that in and of itself impresses me. But when you take that out of the picture and you look at it holistically, I find both magic and dance, choreographed dance, unbelievably dumb. I do not understand why anybody likes it. Again, if people like it, great, awesome. I love that you like it. I reserve the right to think that they are incredibly dumb activities.
You
And
really don't like David Copperfield
I
and
do
all
not.
those guys?
I laugh whenever they're up
Card
there
tricks?
doing. They're fun. Card tricks are fun,
Yeah.
but that's not what I'm talking about. Like those kind of silly card tricks. Those are like, oh,
Uh-huh.
cool. How did you do that? They go on for 20 seconds. They're done,
Yeah.
and it's like, wow, that was cool sleight of hand. What I'm talking about is David Copperfield coming out in his finery, and there's curtains and
Yeah.
pyrotechnics and
Yeah.
hot women dancing across the stage
Spectacle. The
and
spectacle.
satin sheets and all of that spectacle.
Yeah.
I just find absolutely
Yeah.
ridiculous. I can't take it seriously, and anytime I watch it, it just makes me laugh. Right? I mean, I love Penn and Teller, but Penn and Teller, their magic tricks are secondary to what the act actually is. Right?
Yeah, it's about them.
It's about them. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so Penn and Teller,
They're really entertaining.
yeah, are super
They're
entertaining.
entertaining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so I watch The Prestige, and I find, as we've established, that kind of magic unbelievably done and completely unserious. And then Christopher Nolan makes a drama about two magicians in a feud. And I'm like, really? Okay. I will watch this. And it was middling to me.
Yeah.
So, anyway. So, all of that to say, I think when the dust settles on this, the cultural phenomenon around Barbenheimer is going to be larger than the cultural significance of either of those movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think taken in a vacuum, 10 years from now, people are going, oh yeah, that Barbie movie was kind of fun. And people go, yeah, Oppenheimer, that was, it was one of, it's a Nolan movie. It was fine, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But then they go, but God, do you remember how crazy it got when this came out? Like that's what's going to persist. I think both of these movies will ultimately be not forgotten per se, but certainly not things that are going to make AFI's top 100 movies list,
Yeah. Yeah, it was funny. Like when Amit and I were trying to get tickets, they were sold out. Like you
Yeah.
could not find good seats. Like like it's been like years since I've seen that. Maybe during kind of the heyday for Marvel movies when you were trying to see a Marvel movie that was kind of coming out. That's the last time, and that's been like feels like 10 years or so.
Yeah.
With the the fever that hit movie theaters. So in that regard, it's pretty cool that movie theaters kind of got a spike a little bit of interest, and that's kind of cool. Maybe it revitalizes. Oh yeah, this is what it's like going to the movies. Maybe, but we'll see.
We'll see. I mean, I totally agree. I am not besmirching the success of those movies, regardless of if
Sure.
that success stands on the merits of the movies themselves or some sort of cultural moment. If it's putting butts in seats, I say great, right?
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
I am
Ultimately,
super
that's really
happy.
cool.
Yeah, exactly. My thoughts of the movies notwithstanding, right? Anything to keep the theater experience alive, because again, as we've belabored over many streams, going to movie theaters is close to a religious experience as I tend to get. So
Yeah.
But yeah, no. The last
now
time
here's
I
the
went
thing.
to a packed movie was actually Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning. It was packed. It was almost sold out when I went to go see it. So
So I think people are kind of hungry for at least a potential of a really good movie to go watch, and then what's funny is like after Mission Impossible came out, isn't that when Indiana Jones came out, like the next weekend or something like that?
no,
Is that
Indiana
when it
Jones
did,
came
or
out
I
the
can't
weekend
remember.
before Dead Reckoning.
Before it.
And it was a complete
Okay.
bomb.
Yeah.
I think.
And it was a bomb.
Yeah. But I think that
Good
it's.
point.
I
Yeah.
think that it's because it was a bad movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
They premiered it at Cannes, and it got remarkably bad reviews. And so,
Oh, really? A can?
yeah,
Huh.
and so it already out of the gate was working at a deficit, and then it didn't help the fact that I just think that most movie goers don't want to watch an 80-year-old action star, right? Like, I just don't think that that's really what an audience wanted, and the filmmakers were kind of hoping that they could trade off of nostalgia. And we've talked about this, but I don't think that the nostalgia for Indiana Jones exists anymore. The people who are nostalgic about it don't really want to watch an 80-year-old Indiana Jones. It kind of ruins their memory of the movies, quite frankly. And the younger audience doesn't know who Indiana Jones is. So, you know, anyway, I think to a certain extent people are just tired of Marvel movies. They're tired of Disney, right? I mean, Disney, their biggest success so far this year was Guardians of the Galaxy 3. And even Guardians, it was not by any stretch of the imagination the biggest success Disney has had in their Marvel franchise.
No, they've had a string of really mediocre / bad releases lately. Whether it's animated.
Yeah, I mean, Elemental was a bomb. Indiana Jones was a bomb. Doctor Strange was last year, but it didn't blow the doors off. Ant-Man 3 was a bomb.
It was a bomb. Yeah, they've had nothing but bombs. It's crazy.
And then even on their TV
trying to think.
front.
So yeah, it was Guardians.
Yeah. On their TV front, it's so bad that they've decided to not do any more Marvel TV shows for the time being. This latest one.
I mean, did they actually cancel some of the Marvel shows?
No, they haven't canceled anything, but they're not putting anything new in production. So if anything was already in production, it's going to get finished and released. So they're not doing what HBO did, or Warner Brothers did, which is like, oh, Batgirl is finished? We're just going to shelve it and take it as a loss. Right.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to deplatform shows that people still enjoyed, right? But they're not starting production on any new shows. And it doesn't surprise me. I mean, if you look at the reviews for their new TV show, Secret Invasion, the reviewers have not been kind to that show. And I don't know. I mean, I know of it. I've watched it off and on for work, again, because that's my job. And it's awful. It's legitimately awful.
So we watched it here. I watched it, and the finale came out last week, I guess, and they wrapped it up. Boy, it felt like they were just trying to just get it over with and punch in their time clock and go home. It just felt so rushed.
That last fight scene, I was laughing. It was so dumb. I guess I won't go into too many spoilers, but it was just the way it was done, the way it was presented.
Yeah,
it's sort of like the classic thing, and Alan Moore pointed this out. Like, you write and draw things you write and create things for the medium that you're telling it in. And so, while the Super Scroll kind of works within the context of the comic book pages, Super Scroll does not work in a TV show. It looks silly, it looks dumb, and it was. I mean, frankly, Super Scroll looks silly and dumb in the comic books too. If we're being really honest, if I'm being really honest.
So I have not followed Super Scroll since my days reading Incredible Hulk. So I know the Incredible Hulk took on the Super Scroll way back.
Well, I mean, the Fantastic Four was fighting the Super Scroll back in the '60s.
Yep, yeah, and then that was the whole point, is because he has all their powers. But along the line, trying to avoid spoilers, but I mean, we kind of mentioned Super Scroll, but I think that's kind of public knowledge.
I think that's kind of, I mean, they know it's about the Skrulls, and so
yeah.
But anybody who doesn't read the comic books, they don't know what Super Scroll means, so there's no context.
Yeah. So that's where I'm confused though, because the TV show takes a completely different take the Super Scroll, and it's not just one dude. Now it's like this whole other conspiracy type thing to kind of set up. Yeah. So you kind of lose that main villain type character to use, and then they pretty much did steroids with it on top of that. So now it's like but to go back a little bit, so here's the thing that's kind of weird to me though, because like we've watched the Incredible Hulk in all these Avengers movies. I didn't mind seeing him, and he was all completely CG. So why is it that this last fight scene is getting panned so badly. So for me, I just watched it. I didn't care. I didn't
Right.
feel like it was bad. I just watched it. But yeah, you're not the first person to mention like the last fight scene was terrible. And is it because the pacing was bad, or was it because the effects were bad? Because to me, the effects were like whatever. I didn't think it was that great of a fight scene.
Yeah.
But what did you see in it that made it so bad in
It
your
wasn't.
opinion?
It wasn't the effects. I mean, the effects were middling, right? They weren't any better or
Hmm.
worse than the
Yeah.
latest crop of their
Yeah.
movies, which are just awful
Uh-huh.
looking.
Yeah.
It wasn't the choreography of the fight. It was middling to bad, but it wasn't like the worst fight choreography I've ever seen. It was the fact that, well, you know what? Screw it. If you haven't seen Secret Invasion, go pause this, go watch Secret Invasion, and come back if you care.
Spoiler. Okay,
Spoiler
we're gonna do the
alerts now.
spoiler
Yeah.
here. Okay,
It was the
fair enough.
fact that to use the powers of the characters that they got the DNA from, they had to turn into those characters, and so, you know, Daenerys wants to use Drax's punch, so
Daenerys.
her arm turns into Drax's arm, and then the other guy wants to use Hulk's kick, so his leg and just his leg turns into Hulk's leg, and then anytime they use one of these familiar powers, they have to assume the form of that character before they can use the
Yeah,
power, and it looked
yeah.
ridiculous. It just looked
It just looked.
silly.
Oh, so you think the patchwork quilt look
Yeah,
of them is what made it look silly?
yeah.
Okay,
It
because
wasn't.
like again, for me, like when I read the Super Scroll fighting the Hulk, for example, he would have things armed,
Yeah,
and then he would have Johnny Storm's hand. He would do that, and so I was just because I was already conditioned to expect that. It wasn't a big deal to me. It was like, okay, it is corny, definitely. I see what you're saying now, especially with people that aren't familiar with the Super Scroll in the comic books. And again, it goes back to the whole point with Alan Moore. Yeah, I can see that now, but it took me. I just didn't understand like what why were now it makes more sense.
you know,
So
in the instance of like other superheroes like Iron Man or Hulk or Thor, while it taken, you know, looking at it from 1,000 views, it's all very silly. I mean, comic books are silly. You know, and there's nothing wrong with
yeah,
that. But at least with those
sure.
characters were internally consistent. Hulk was a big giant
Hmm.
Goliath who hurt people. Thor was an alien that inspired the Norse mythology, right? Iron Man
Yeah,
wore this specialized suit that gave him a lot of abilities. They had one thing and it was internally consistent, and all of their abilities originated from that one thing, right? But
yeah,
then this Super
yeah,
Skrull character, both of them actually, I just like it was so ridiculous that the whole premise was so dumb. Anyway, that wasn't even the
yeah.
worst of it though for me though. The worst of
Mm,
it was when Space Jesus, Carol Danvers, Miss Marvel,
hmm.
who is as powerful as Superman with none of his
Hmm.
weaknesses, right?
Hmm.
They get
Yeah.
both of them get her powers as well. And then when
Uh-huh.
they both turn into Captain Marvel, I'm sitting there going, why didn't you just do that at the start? Because she has the power of
Yeah.
the Hulk. She has the beams of Iron
Uh-huh.
Man. She can fly like Thor. She has super strength. She has laser beam eyes. She has everybody's power already.
Yeah.
So why did you
Yeah.
need Drax's arm? Why did you need Hulk's leg? Why did you need any
Yeah.
of this stuff? The second they turned into Miss Marvel, or Captain Marvel rather, I'm
It's
like,
kind of game over.
it's
Yeah,
game over.
it's kind
This
of
is
game over.
stupid. Why do you have any
Yeah.
of these other powers? It's absolutely not necessary.
Yeah, it was just more again, it was just to pad out the ending. And
Yeah,
again, it's because I felt like they just wanted to just write their big giant boomy ending and then get out and go home. I
yeah.
mean, that yeah, it was bad. Like, there's so many questions like that all over the place, you know. So
Hmm.
yeah, it was I liked the first one or two episodes, the setup for it, but after that it just slowly went down a hill of sadness, you know, with the
Well,
show.
and since we're
And
so deep
you
into
know,
spoiler territory, the way they just keep fundamentally dismantling how cool Nick Fury used to be is really, really upsetting to me. Especially given that all of this stuff that they introduce to the character has been it's supposed to have been going on since the 90s. You're
mhm,
like, okay,
mhm,
this character, this is not the character who was in the Avengers. This is not the character who was in Winter Soldier. This is not the character that was written for all these other movies, right? He's
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
married. What? He has an estranged wife. Why would the most dangerous super spy in the world have some estranged wife who's just living? Now, okay, I get it. They establish that she's a badass in her own right, but come on,
Yeah.
where was she in
Yeah. Yeah.
all
Yeah.
of this? Okay,
Yeah, I know. It felt kind of tacked on. Yeah.
and then the fact that he's had this guilt for 30 some odd years over not finding the scrolls of A New Home. Where was that guilt in Captain America Winter Soldier? Where is that guilt in the Avengers, right? I mean, you've known about the
Yeah.
scrolls for so long. Why weren't they a part of the Avengers, right?
And this is part of the problem too. It's like we've now seen enough movies to know that life can exist on other planets.
Right.
Plenty of places. Like, I mean, they ripped off Planet Hulk, and hey,
Yep.
he lived on this planet where people like. So that's not even. I don't understand. I don't even understand what he's feeling guilty about, because I just think he just didn't do his job. He should be feel guilty for not doing his job, because it obviously is clear that there are aliens out there. They can all live on planets and just
Right.
find them a new home.
Right,
You
and
know,
you've got
it
Carol
doesn't make any
Danvers
sense.
gallivanting all around the
Yeah,
galaxy, and
fine.
you've got a
And
beeper
they
that can
can't find.
call her whenever you want to, and yet somehow
Yeah,
it's
the more you think
gotten
about it, the worse. Yeah, it just, again, they phoned it in. They didn't. It's
yeah
like they had this whole tapestry of Marvel stuff that they could have drawn from, and it's like they didn't even watch their own content under the Marvel umbrella. And they just wrote something just self-contained for
yeah
this show, and it just, yeah, it's just bad.
yeah
Yeah.
it was just bad. Um,
Oh man.
it was just
Oh.
yeah. Anyway, so it's I think I don't know. I'm optimistic that general audiences are over Disney. Now, Disney's not going anywhere. I don't, and I have no desire to see Disney fail. That's not what this is about.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there is no question that in the last 15 to 20 years, Disney in all of its, forms has basically completely captured all entertainment, all media. It is almost impossible to get away from Disney anymore.
Yeah. Hmm.
And I am hoping that their empire has grown so vast that it can't keep itself together anymore, and the quality of their work is going down, and people are finally getting bored of it. Because Lord knows I am. I've been bored of all the Disney stuff for God since Endgame came out, and that was what 2014, 2015.
Yeah. It's been a while. It's been a minute.
2019.
Yeah.
Okay, that was long, it was more recent than I thought it was, but that's
Yeah.
right.
I
I
mean,
forgot it was
definitely.
in. Yep.
Disney's definitely bloated for sure, but
Yeah.
you can still find snippets of good stuff here and there that they'll do, and I mean, I don't want to discount everything they do as just trash, but definitely the mediocrity is showing because they're just too big. But
They're trying to
you
do
will
too
still
much.
see flashes. Yeah, yeah, it's kind of sad. I heard there was this is I don't know if you saw this or not, but there was a really really weird rumor where a blurb, and again, it's the internet, so you don't really believe everything, but like they were saying, like maybe Apple would buy Disney at this point because they're just suffering so much, and
I don't see
I don't,
that happening, frankly.
yeah, I'd really not want to see that happen anyway. On top of that, Apple's got some good stuff on their own. They don't need Disney. They're doing just fine with some of the shows that they produced. Severance is an excellent show. I don't know if you've seen that yet or not,
Oh yeah, of
but
course. I loved Severance.
yeah, yeah,
And After Party was
so.
great. Season 2 of that is
Mhm,
out now, and Ted
mhm,
Lasso was fine
yeah,
for a while. Although I haven't seen it, but I
yeah.
heard season 3 was a miss.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, and they have misses, but you know what? They have a lot of good stuff on their streaming service right now, so that's good. I don't know. So I don't know why they want to take on the giant bloat that is a Disney juggernaut and then deal with all that. Like, why? It sounds like a headache. Trying to keep trying to herd cats, all these creative cats, trying to do stuff and try to keep everything cohesive. It's really, you see the seams kind of popping a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, but I know we're kind of ending on a kind of sad, somber note
Well,
for
no,
Disney a
we're
little
not.
bit,
I
but
keep trying to get to one thing before we go, and then this will be
okay.
our French exit, and then we'll call it a day. I did see something quite good this weekend. They
Okay.
Cloned Tyrone. Have you heard of this movie?
Oh, yeah, I saw the title for it. Is it on Netflix or
Netflix.
something? Or
Yeah, it is
yeah,
hysterical. It is so
really?
good. Yeah, and it is such a good send up on the nature of the current state of discourse in our cultural moment right now when it comes
Okay.
to where does black culture sit in our society. It's
Mm-hmm.
so good, and one of the best things Jamie Foxx has done, in my opinion. Just so funny, so well written, such a clever story. I just it reminded me of Sorry to Bother You in terms of its weirdness, but its cleverness. Or
Yeah.
yeah, right? Is
Okay.
right? That was with Lakeith. Is that what Lakeith Stanfield's
Yep.
flick? Sorry to
Mm-hmm.
bother you, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I think. I mean, okay. I'm gonna take a little bit of credit.
it doesn't
I
get
think I
it doesn't
tried
get
to
as
tell you.
weird as that, but it does
Yeah.
get weird. Yeah. Yeah, that was a
I
recommendation from
think.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, I told you need to see this movie, and it still resonates. It's so
Yeah.
I know we're talking about. I'm just laughing thinking about like the last few scenes
Oh my
of
god.
that
It
film.
got
How
so weird at the
crazy!
end. Yeah. But
It's,
it was
I
great
loved
though.
it for that reason.
Yeah, yeah. It
It was
was
so
truly
well
great.
done.
Um
Yeah.
but yeah, it
So this
was
that, but it's in that same vein,
it's
huh?
in that same vein, and it was so
Hmm.
good, and it was intentionally shot in a very reminiscent of the black exploitation films of the
Huh?
70s,
Hmm.
down to they added, and it kind of works, they added like a film grain effect on it to make it look like it was poorly developed film. They even added
Hmm.
cigarette
Yeah.
burns in post, even though on obviously this wasn't filmed on,
Yeah.
it wasn't, it was obviously
Yeah.
filmed on digital, it was not filmed on film, it was not shot on
Yeah.
film, but it was like really steeped in history. You could tell that the filmmakers understood that subgenre of film, and they were just super geeks too. I mean, just the references to Nancy Drew and Hollow Man of all movies, and it was just so weird, but it was a riot.
All right.
John Boyega, I can't believe that guy's ear for accents. You would never tell that he's from Great Britain. You could never tell. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's really, really entertaining. Could not recommend it enough. Maybe one of my favorite movies of the year so far.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
high praise from you.
yeah.
All right, I'll
So
have to check it out. We have Netflix, so we'll check it out over here.
definitely
Sure.
recommend it. Yeah. So you didn't want to end on a dour note, so there we go. We did not end on a
Okay.
dour note.
Good. Great. So that's good. Yeah. As far as what we worked on tonight here on with Calamity Jane, I kind of just worked. I kind of jumped around tonight as we were talking. You know,
Hmm.
like how we always talk anyway. But I was jumping around, animatically speaking too. Like just kind of putting scenes here and there. So, I mean, it's kind of weird. Like I kind of did this pose here a little bit, and again, this still needs to be worked on for
Hmm.
post, as far as lighting is concerned and stuff. But poses are in there, and then yeah, this is kind of the poses are in here, but see the lighting's off between Calamity and Leon, so I'll
Hmm.
fix that later. But the pose is in there, and yeah, so yeah, I kind of jumped around, got a couple of scenes almost sort of to a half-baked state, going back to
Cool.
Secret Invasion's half-baked script.
Yes.
So,
Way to bring it full circle. All right.
so there we go.
Well, on that note, we'll call it quits on this almost an hour long episode tonight. As always, if you head over to calamityjane.rocks, that'll take you to our Patreon site. Please consider joining us on this ridiculous adventure to make this cartoon a reality. You can check us out on Facebook and YouTube, which presumably you are. And as we mentioned last week, I don't really know where we stand on Twitter, given how weird that platform has become in the last several months.
We'll find a new place. We'll find a new home for our
We'll find a new home, and then three tweet
our
stories.
three-line stories.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
We'll
Three
find a
whatever
place.
stories.
Yeah,
We'll
three
find
blurb stories.
three blurb stories. I love it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe we'll start a Substack or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, So yeah, that's everything for tonight. I think next week things are finally starting to slow down, at least on Mondays, and I think I'll be around next Monday. Yourself, James?
Yes, I should be around. So we'll
Lovely.
pick it back up.
All right. Well, we'll see you all next week. Stay safe out there, and we'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.
Goodbye.